So this is the sixth video lecture. It's the very last one on the topic of deviance. And I just want to wrap up with this final idea about what deviance is, or another way to think about how we apply the concept of deviance. So thus far, we've mostly been talking about theory, right, and why people break the rules or why they follow the rules. But this topic is a little bit different. So this topic suggests, or this idea suggests, that even that deviance applies to not so in the first lecture, we talked about how it was a response to an act or a characteristic. This is specifically about mental characteristics, and it challenges the idea of what is mental health, or what I'm calling mental deviance. But from the purely social, and remember, if you've taken psych, there's different ways of thinking about all these things. But from this perspective, it suggests that this phenomena, these characteristics of behavior of people, that we call mental illness, they are not mental illnesses. And the theory argues is these are deviances. These are mental deviances. These are deviances in the way that we think, in the way that we emote, in the way that we perceive the world. But they're not illnesses. They are simply differences that mental things, or these things that we think of as their mental behaviors. Our thoughts are mental behaviors. Our emoting, the way that we actually express our emotions and express our feelings, those are behaviors. So it's, and these behaviors, these things, these patterns of mental thinking and these patterns of emotional expression are simply different. That we shouldn't consider them disordered. We shouldn't consider them illnesses. They are just different. So they are neither a mental condition, nor are they an illness. These are thought and emotional behaviors. They may be, by our culture, we may perceive them or consider them inappropriate coping strategies. They're certainly different, right? When they may be learned behaviors. They may be responses to trauma that we've experienced. They may be, we haven't learned a more appropriate way to emote. We may have, they violate the social definition of appropriate emotional or mental behavior. So take, for example, some bipolar, right? Bipolar. And please hear me correctly, that this is just a different way of thinking about these things. And I am by no means intending to discount, if someone has a mental health diagnosis. I just want to offer a different way of thinking about it, right? So phenomena like bipolar disorder. What is bipolar? Well, bipolar is fundamentally, it is some pretty rapid, some pretty serious emotional mood swings. We go from the typical bipolar, you have these periods of high energy, and then others you have a period of profound depression. Well, from a sociological perspective, we all have, we all go through periods where we have more energy and less energy. This is simply an extreme. This is deviant. It's normal to have, high energy and low energy, but it's deviant for it to be profound. So in essence, it's society saying and punishing and criticizing someone, labeling them for having these profound emotional experiences. Or take, for instance, maybe some of the symptoms of schizophrenia. One most common symptom of schizophrenia is you hear things. You have auditory hallucinations, which means you hear voices that nobody else hears. Well, who among us has never gotten a song stuck in our head? We hear voices all the time but we don't have the label of schizophrenic, because when you get a song stuck in your head, society considers that to be normal, a normal kind of hallucination. But somehow or other, society has said, if it's a voice of someone telling you, I actually don't know what hallucinogenic voices say, but if it's a voice that's not a song, well, that's not normal, right? Or to be profoundly sad about something, and to have low levels of energy and and struggle with bathing yourself, symptoms of depression. And, some argue that depression and mental illnesses are logical, logical responses to an illogical world. That, there's a lot of really crappy things out there in their world. So for us to be depressed and have no energy and want to lay in bed, that's logical. Maybe the argument is that maybe what's illogical is for us not to be that way. So the point is that what's considered emotionally and mentally normal, for this is again the sociological perspective of mental deviance, that what is considered emotionally and mentally normal is a social construct. Now, as you hear me say in the psychology chapter on this topic, is it should really boil down to how you feel about your own emotional state. But I want to offer you a different way of conceptualizing the emotional and the mental processes from this perspective of mental or emotional deviance. That the idea is that it is socially constructed. What is a normal emotional response is decided by society. And that, my friends, wraps up the chapter on deviance and social control.